My name is Joshua Neuer. I am the chairman of the American Blackshirt Party, and I'll also be hosting this podcast tonight, the Fascist Roundtable, where we take a look at current events, history, philosophy, and we discuss it from a fascist perspective. Joining me tonight is Matthew Hines, our Deep South Area Director, John Reimer, and Jesse Drummond, the man behind the scenes that's making this all possible. So we got a few topics we're going to talk about with you today. Number one, we're going to talk about trade policy. This is an issue that's been in the news quite a bit within the last few months because Donald Trump has a trade policy which is a pretty significant departure from traditional American trade policy, at least since the end of World War II. Now, let's look at this from a fascist perspective, which is what we try to do on this show. If you go through fascist literature from the interwar era, fascist history, you don't see a whole lot of mention specifically on trade policy, and there's a very good reason for that, is because the transition over into corporatism was not something which took a very long time to do. It happened fairly quickly, even though there was adjustments that went on throughout that era. Now, when we're talking about trade, especially something like free trade, you have to go back hundreds of years to Adam Smith and some of the Enlightenment philosophers and economists, and they were arguing for something called comparative advantage, which means that basically, when you're talking about an agricultural economy, certain countries, certain soil makes better crops than others. So let's say you grow wheat in Great Britain and you have wheat that's grown in France. If Great Britain can make that wheat, if it grows better there, it's cheaper, more efficient to produce, then France should lower their trade barriers for wheat from Britain to get it in there more cheaply. And when you're talking about an agricultural economy, this makes a certain amount of sense. But since we've evolved into an industrial and now a technological economy, this comparative advantage no longer really applies. So when we're talking about trade, first of all, discuss how it works within corporatism, which is our economic and social policy. And corporatism is divided into occupational groups, which we call corporations, and these corporations dictate wages, production, distribution, everything like that. So when you have trade with other countries and this trade undercuts already in the market, how does that work with corporatism? Well, these corporations they're divided into management and labor, and they run them. These corporations are run cooperatively. So labor would never agree with a policy which allows foreign goods to come into this country that's underpriced and take away American jobs and cut American wages. And that a lot of times that's what trade does. Corporatism is very much aligned with autarkic economic policies, a belief that a country should self-economically use its own resources, use its own labor to take care of these problems and not rely on this overseas. So corporatism would cut out these foreign products which take away American jobs and cut American. It would develop the home market, develop our own economy, and of course, there's going to be some setbacks to that. Certain industries may suffer in the short run, but economies being built upon demand. If we could protect the economy and make it grow nationally instead of relying on businesses from overseas or products from overseas, these problems too will take care of themselves. So when Trump, I know we're critical of Trump a lot of what he does, and rightfully so. But his trade policy is at least from my perspective and the perspective of a lot of the members of the American Blackshirt Party, it's a step in the right direction. It's something that we're going to continue to encourage. Now, Matt, what do you have to say on this? What is your opinion on current American trade policy?
Well, my overriding concern as regards the issue of trade is that I believe that we're coming to an era that I think is unique, not not only in the history of our nation, but I think is unique, possibly to the history of our planet. I believe that technology is going to begin impacting trade policy, the capabilities of technology are going to impact trade policies within the United States and globally, in such a way that it's going to be as impactful as any other era, or more so than any other era in human history. What we can do with technology and what the potential within the future holds for technology, I believe, is going to have an impact on trade in ways that we may not even be able to imagine. There may be complexities and problems arise in conducting trade because of technology that we can't even yet foresee. But I believe that fascism offers a safer course moving into the future to account for these technological advancements than capitalism offers. I think that capitalism has such a propensity towards recklessness throughout its history that I think it's not necessarily something that we want to entrust with our future. It's the way I like to imagine is if you just bought a brand new car and you have a teenager in the household that's just learning to drive, you may be a little hesitant to trust that teenager with the keys to the car, particularly if there are such new features in the vehicle that you yourself barely know how to drive the vehicle. I think that fascism is a much more secure economic model and will be much more protective of our economy and will do more to maintain friendly relations with trade partners than I think capitalism could be. Fascism is going to offer us a much more surefire approach to trade going forward into the future, whilst accounting for technological advances.
Capitalism is anarchy. Corporatism, fascist economic policy is managed progressive economics. John Maniglia, I know this issue affects you because of where you are in Minnesota. You have a lot of dairy farmers and people work in agriculture in that area. What do you have to say on this issue?
Well, I think that corporatism is a safeguard against what we see happening today. I completely agree with the idea that what Trump is doing is taking a step in the right direction. The problem is he's taking a step in the right direction under a capitalist ideology and system. So the backlash from that is that when he sets these tariffs, when he starts going, you know what, we're not going to buy, we're not going to sell, we're not going to do this, that, or a third because it's not American products. Well, yes, that is the step in the right direction. Yes, that is the mindset we would like to have. The problem is that he's one man making a decision that is based off of greed and not progression. In a corporatist society, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Josh, but in corporatist society, it is the corporation that is going to make that decision, and that decision was made by the workers themselves within that corporation. If it comes under advisement by the higher levels of, let's say, some metalworking corporation, that in order for that business, that corporation, to make profit, they have to import cheaper tin. But it is the decision based on the corporation. It is the decision based on the workers within that metalworking corporation to import said cheaper tin in order to export more expensive products. In the long term, making it profitable and pushing out American products. So to go back to it is that what we're seeing today, specifically with the agricultural area with here and within the Midwest, is that these tariffs, particularly those set on soy and wheat, their value has dropped enough to the point where it is being affected by our local farmers. To the point even that some have even gone off to wildly claim, although claim nonetheless, that the economy and these tariffs are that and closer to communism. Well, wildly claim, yeah, they can say that, but again, more to the point, as I said earlier, this is a step in the right direction, but one that's not in the direction with the foundation of corporatism. This is a step in the right direction with the foundation of capitalism. So of course there's going to be blowback from that. And the blowback is going to hurt because, again, corporatism is a safeguard because it is a decision made for the worker, made for the people, not necessarily made for lack of a better description, the system.
John Reimer, what is your opinion on this issue for free trade protectionism? Where do you stand on this?
When it comes to trade, I feel that free trade is something that will die when capitalism dies. How Trump is handling capitalism it's decent. It's simply better than what we had with the last president. But in the end, I feel it's something that we shouldn't really care too much on. What we should worry about is how we will run trade in the corporate system. And even then, how will we really evaluate the value to everything that we export out to other countries when we need a certain resource? Another big thing that we'll need to worry about is the horrible trade deals that we've already had that may be irreversible under a fascist state.
So you think under a fascist state we wouldn't be able to reverse some of these trade deals?
At the present time, no. Given we have the diplomatic vigor to persuade the Chinese and multiple other overseas markets to give us back essentially our market, then I feel we won't get very far. Corporatism will, however, be a very good step into our society for the better difference of economic change. I myself do lean quite corporatist in the extent that I like the multiple corporates, but I do find myself in the syndicalist sort. But I do very much agree with most of the economics spoken by Maniglia and Matt. One thing I'd like to add is our trade policies will change after we are long gone if the fascist revolution is to take seed, and that seed will be with the youth. The youth will figure things out that we do not currently know. I feel we will get somewhere, and Trump leads us in the decent direction of capitalism so far. However, in the long run, we don't really need to worry about capitalism, for we are going to fix everything tooth and nail as hard as we can.
All right, thank you, John. Mr. Drummond, do you have any opinion on this issue?
Well, I believe, as for you were talking about Trump, I don't really think it's a step in the right direction. I think it's going to turn out to be the same issues as always. I mean, he's trying to put tariffs on China and stuff, and they're doing the same thing with us. It's just sparking a trade war that could be totally unnecessary. There's different ways to do it. We could totally reform how we trade. But I do think trade is definitely essential. It's not like just if we get a corporatist economy that doesn't necessarily X out all trade. We still need trade. We definitely have to export. We have to make money. I believe trade is a very important issue that we should definitely always touch up on, and we should definitely make our stance on it known. And
Right.
That's pretty much all I have to say.
Topic number 2 today is health and physical fitness. Fascism takes a unique approach when it comes to topics like this. The traditional Enlightenment approach is to value the act of something more than the content. It values the act of expressing freedom of speech. It does not value the content of that speech. It values the ability to say yay or nay, regardless of which one is correct. So, fascism rejects the theory of rights. Rights lead to selfishness. They lead to a sense of entitlement. We put more value on positive action, on content. So when we're talking about physical fitness, talking about health, to a system of obligations and duties which we try to promote and articulate. You're talking about us as individuals. That individuality is the result of being part of different collectives. First of all, we're part of a family, then we're part of a community, and we're part of a nation. And being part of these collective units makes us into the individual that we are. And so our obligation and duties are connected with our membership in these collectives, or our physical health, like what's going on in the country today, where we have runaway rates of diabetes and heart disease, cancers, which not all the time is connected with somebody ignoring their health, but many times it is. We ignore those obligations to our family, to our community, and to our nation. Fitness and taking care of ourselves, it's definitely a fascist issue. It's definitely something that we have to be more aware of and be more cognizant on. And it starts with the youth. Currently, we have rates of participation in youth sports, Little League, baseball, basketball, and football, which have gone down in this country. Instead, what we have is a generation of young people that we're raising who are on the computer all day. They're playing their video games, and they're not getting out and being more active. Now, part of this has to do with the decaying nature of the society that we live in. A lot of parents are afraid to send their kids out of the house without supervision. They're afraid to have them play in the neighborhood because it's running around with child molesters, criminals, all sorts of bad people that society is just ignoring and not locking up. It's the government's job to create an environment where people can grow and become self-aware, and right now that's not happening. Add to that the fact that because of how our economy is structured, have to work full-time, both sets of parents. It's not how it used to be, where that option was always there, where one of those parents could stay home with the kids and raise their children. So that's preventing a lot of this outside activity from happening. So the question is, where does the state come in? What role does it have in fixing this, especially with the youth? And because it's one thing to get on a soapbox and say you should do this and you should do that. You know, there is a role for that, but that's always secondary. You have to have positive legislative changes that come into effect here. And I know there's a lot of room here for investment into some of these programs and helping out when it comes to transportation, when it comes to paying for them, because the cost of a lot of these programs has gone up too. So there is a big government role to be had. Now, when we're talking about adulthood, because a lot of these health problems which start in childhood are getting worse as we go into becoming adults, and this is connected to our economy and to the society we live in to a large extent. Most of us go to work in these 9-to-5 jobs, and we go in there treated worse than you have in a school. 5 job, you sit in a cubicle for 8 hours. You have to be there exactly on time. Your every movement is monitored. You can only go on a break, and they're in a very specific period. And this is to adults. This is not children at these places. A lot of times it's more strict than a daycare center or a school. And this creates a disenchantment with the society, with our job, which we are with our family a lot of times. And it leads to things like alcoholism, abuses connected with food, because people are looking for an escape from their ordinary lives. And so I come back again to this idea of corporatism, and it seems like I probably bring this up with every topic because it's so central to what we do. It's not only a way of making the economy grow and to improve our material conditions, but to improve our spiritual, and that's connected with our work. So that's very essential that we look at this holistically and talk about health and isolation, but talk about how it's connected with our everyday ordinary lives. Talk about how it's connected with the economy, how it's connected with government, and the role corporatism has in actually fixing some of the abuses that go on with our everyday ordinary lives. Matt, what do you have to say about physical fitness?
Well, I think it's essential that we as a party should encourage and promote physical activity particularly for young people, but also for older adults as well, because we want to encourage people to live the most total, the most complete, the fullest life that they can live, for the purpose of being able to lend the greatest possible contribution to their immediate family, to their communities, and ultimately to the state. I think that may be exactly kind of what you just touched on, and if it was, then I would want to echo what you've said, Josh. But also, I think that it's important that we encourage physical activities amongst young people for a very commonly and very wide known and understood concept, but one that's so well understood that oftentimes it's just very easily glossed over. And that's the idea, the concept of teamwork. The idea of encouraging young people to appreciate the value of a team effort will go a long way towards encouraging that same notion of a team effort in the home. And then it could be translated to the community level. People coming together, working in such a way, believing in the potential success of the community first, and then allowing for individual enrichment. That's at the core of fascist ideology. That's at the core of what exactly it is that we believe. We want to encourage individual success. We want to encourage individual enrichment, but that has to be done so through the proper context and in the right way. And when we focus on achieving, on developing, on working towards the success of the team, the success of the family, the success of the community, the success of the state, when we focus on that, on making sure that that effort succeeds, if we work diligently towards that end, we will find that personal enrichment that we yearn for, that we long for. But it shouldn't be the overriding focus. It's not enough for the individual to, when they believe in that notion to the core, then they will achieve that genuine, true success that the state needs to be able to not only survive, but to thrive, and thus give back to its individual constituents.
Very well said, Matt. John Maniglia, what do you have to say on this issue?
Well, I think that physical fitness is, well, it's incredibly valuable for multiple reasons. First and foremost, it's a form of discipline. And if you don't have a sense of discipline within yourself, then what you have is a lack of drive. Discipline translates to being driven. Discipline translates to integrity. Discipline translates to a sense of morality that is hardworking, and more importantly, as is said, driven. Now, physical fitness, if this is taught correctly, if this is given appropriately early on in the early stages of life, that is a habit. It turns into a habit. It can turn into a habit. So if we give physical fitness and make it available to all of our youth immediately, or as soon as they are cognitively aware of what is happening, it's so much for the better of the next generations. I firmly believe that it is in a politician's duty not to better today, but to better tomorrow. Because politics is the long game. Now, when we're talking about physical fitness, again, I mentioned that we're focusing in on the youth. And we're developing habits for them that are everyday, that are part of their life. That, you know, like myself, when I don't go out for, you know, a workout after doing it periodically for months on end, and you skip one or two workouts, you get agitated. You get something similar to when you've quit smoking for the first 3 days and you need a smoke. It's the same and similar feeling when all of a sudden you've been working out for 3 months and you skip a day. You're agitated, you're fidgety, you're just all pent up. That's almost the kind of same feeling we want to give our youth. So they continuously feel better, so they continuously are in great health, so they continuously make a habit of being disciplined in their own physical fitness, physical health. And in addition to that, I believe last podcast that we had, our last roundtable meetup, we briefly touched into mental health. Being physically healthy provides a avenue in which the person can become mentally healthy. I believe the term is called a runner's high. When an individual is running for a long period of time, he experiences a kind of euphoria. You do that, and you do that over and over again, your chances of depression, of mental illness drop. Now, granted, there are other circumstances regarding, you know, genetics or some type of predisposition that are just not going to be fixed with a jog. But for those that don't have those certain predispositions, the chances of you experiencing poor mental health are dramatically decreased when you have higher physical health fitness. Hence, the need for a nation to be physically fit. Hence, the need for a nation to want physically fit. And thirdly, hence the drive to make this a habit within our youth, so other generations following them continue the same habit.
Very well put, John. John Reimer, what do you have to say on this topic?
All right. My stance on health and physical health, I feel it's something that everyone needs, but it is severely lacking in this country as of recently. I have not exactly disabilities, but illnesses that can manifest given I do not work on my health. As mentioned earlier, diabetes, high blood pressure, etc. To motivate oneself to do these things, you simply have to find it in yourself to do it. And that's hard for some people, especially if they are a big foodie or, they were raised the way that most modern children are, in the sense that they didn't really have the opportunities to go out. Now, all of these things can be easily fixed, but I feel it manifests now these days in the school place for the youth. Statistically, hourly, when a child is at school, they see that school life longer than their own family life. So if we open up the possibility to have more physical fitness in the school place, then we can open up more windows to physically redefine America as it stands right now.
Well said. Well said. I know I'm guilty of this on occasion myself, of eating too much and not paying enough attention to my health. So I know a lot of us, there's a lot we can do on our end to fix this also.
Yeah.
Jesse, what is your opinion here?
Yes, I want to talk about how the average person could fit this into their routine to be physically healthy. It also makes you mentally healthy, and these guys went a lot of good points about how for the betterment of the entire community as a whole and your collectives, it's very beneficial for everybody to be healthy. Fit this into your routine. I hear a lot of people, and recently I'm guilty of this myself. People make the excuse saying they don't have enough time, and that leads off to other things as well. A lot of people say they don't have time for several different things, but let me tell you the story about how I started working out and how I fitted it into my routine, and it became a daily part of my life. Few years ago, I started feeling unhealthy. I smoked cigarettes and drank a little too much. It was around when I was 21, just turned 21, and I was going to the bar a little too much, hanging out with my friends too much. So I decided that this needs to change, and I want to quit smoking and get healthy. So one day I just stopped smoking. I just said, you know what, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm going to get healthy. So I found out that after work, it doesn't really work for me, because it's just a mental block. You're tired after work. So I decided I'm just going to start running and working out at lunch. I'll take that 30 minutes, and that whole 30 minutes, I'm just going to just work my ass off. So I started, I put some dumbbells in my car that day, then drove to work. Okay, at that lunch, which this became everyday routine, I started doing burpees. Tons of burpees. With burpees, it pretty much translates that you do a few hundred push-ups in one go without doing it all at once. So that's a very good workout routine. It's something that you could do anywhere. You could do it at lunch. Just go in the secluded part of the parking lot. Luckily, there's a bunch of trailers and stuff, so I could park over there and kind of be alone. So I start doing this every day. Then twice a week I'll run 2 miles. And I got to the point where I could run 2 miles in 10 to 11 minutes, which is better than a lot of people. I haven't been able to run like that since I was a kid. And what this did for me, it made me just a better person overall. It made me more confident when it comes to, say, if you have to defend your family or something like that. It just gives you overall confidence. I'm not a big man, but at that point in my life, I felt so healthy and so strong that I felt like I could totally defend my family. I could defend my wife, my child, without a problem. It made me so confident. It made me more productive. I started noticing that I was less lazy and able to do other things after work. I started going to school after that, and I felt brighter. I felt just 100% better. So, if you want to get healthy, stop saying, I don't have time for it, and try find a way to fit it into your schedule. If you got to wake up an hour early, wake up that hour early. If you have to do it at lunch, like I did, which there's a lot of people who go running or jogging at lunch, go do that. Bring some dumbbells and just start doing some weights right there in the parking lot, right next to your car. I think this is something that everyone can do. I could start doing it right now, especially my current job. I could take an hour lunch if I want. I think it's very important, and if everyone fits stuff like this into their routine, they would become an overall more productive person, because it would take out that mental block that you don't have the time to do something, and then you would just go ahead and do it. And I think it's very important to fascist doctrine. Everyone should do this. Everyone should be a hard worker, increase their work ethic, and get out there and bust your ass and do good in life.
Well said, Jesse. Well said. Okay, so now we're going to go on to our final topic today, and that's sort of a free topic period where each of us talk about a certain or event that's going to go on within our community or within our country that we take a particular interest in. And I will go first. And the big issue this week in the news was Laura Ingraham. Let me repeat what she said earlier in the week. Some parts of the country, it does seem like the America that we know and love doesn't exist anymore. Massive demographic changes have been foisted upon the American people, and they're changes that none of us ever voted for and most of us don't like. Now, before I respond to this, I just have to reinforce the point that support current immigration policy. When I mean current, the immigration policy we've had in this country for quite some time, not just under Trump or Obama, and we don't think it's good for the country, and it leads to a lot of problems. But I have a big problem with Laura's quote here. The problem is with people on Fox News and modern conservatives in general is that they are huge supporters of free market capitalism, the very ideology which has led to this disastrous immigration policy that we're talking about. People on the right like to say that when things are going well, they say good economic figures. They like to say capitalism is wonderful, it's working. But when things go into the tank and nothing goes well, they never blame capitalism. They never blame their own ideology. They go after welfare recipients. They go after poor people. And they have this boogeyman sort of theory where that we can get rid of these shadowy figures operating in the closets, operating in secret, we'd be fine. It's the Marxist college professors. It's this politician here. It's this person there. They don't think systematically. They think very dark. They're very simplistic. They go after the big punching bag right in front of them, even if it has no relevance to the topic at hand. And what they fail to address is this bigger point that is strong in its identity, which is a strong country with strong communities, would a country like that, an immigration policy, which is basically open borders, which says, come on in, anybody who wants. Millions of people from overseas that don't share a common history, don't share a common culture, can just come in here as they like. Now, sure, there's been opposition to this. There's been people that have been disgruntled, but it's always been at the edges, and it's never translated into any kind of political action at all. Those who have tried to speak out against it usually lose their seats in office. There is no significant opposition to these policies, like Laura Ingraham is trying to say. I mean, we may complain. People tactically accept it, and so, but the right does not get democracy, capitalism. It destroys community, it destroys culture, and it replaces those things, the dollar bill, and with material goods. And that's what we see happening in our country today. It's not the fact that we have a lot of our population is immigrants. It's the fact that our political and economic system have systematically destroyed of this becoming a unified. And I don't know if the right is ever going to get this. I know we get it, idea too. But as it stands now, modern conservatism, you want to know why it's a dead ideology? They cannot look and tell you what the real problem is. They cannot look in the mirror, because if they looked in the mirror, took a good, long, hard look, what the problem is with this country today and its politics. What is your particular issue you want to talk about?
Well, I want to bring up another very important issue that's extremely relevant to the American Blackshirt Party, because there is a grossly inaccurate portrayal of our party by some that suggests that we align with racists and with other groups that profess the name fascism, who don't truly, genuinely represent fascist ideals and fascist beliefs. They may claim our name, and they may claim some kind of kinship with us, some kind of spiritual kinship, but there is no relation between our movement and the movement of racially motivated politics. Particularly, I'd like to address those groups who are participating in the Unite the Right movement. I want to address them specifically. Let me be abundantly clear. The American Blackshirt Party, in no way, shape, or form, condones racially motivated politics, nor do we support any other political organization or group that wants to engage in racially motivated politics. For those who want to profess the idea of an ethno-state, an exclusive ethno-state, or who want to, even those who seek to profess this idea of white pride, we have no relation to them. We have no support for those ideas. We believe in one race, one extremely important, one overriding race, and that is the American race, which is a race of spirit. Our race is a race that seeks to unify a society as opposed to divide a society based on the color of a person's skin or the place where they were born. We encourage productive immigration. If people wish to come to this country to immigrate to this country, to assimilate and become a part of an American fascist future, then we encourage that. We want that. That's what we look for. That's what we desire. And so let us as a party make a commitment to oppose any sort of political ideology that is motivated by hatred or by
Fear.
a desire to weed out people because of some sort of pseudoscience or some preconceived notions which aren't truly founded in genuine fact. So let that be what I have to say for this round. That we want to bring this country together in a way that no other political force on the American stage is trying to do.
John Maniglia, what's your particular issue you want to talk about today?
Well, I believe that an issue that's kind of come up, or that's really kind of sparked my interest is the idea of what was I going to say? It was the idea of a free education, an idea of a free education through the state, through state funding. And while this idea sounds great on paper, and while this idea sounds like a wonderful goal to have, I think people need to realize that when you make these adjustments, when you make these plans, when you take these plans into action, you lose something as well. There is nothing in this world is for free. Absolutely nothing. Everything has a price. And to say that we would have a free education available and then follow up without an explanation as to what's really the cost, well, I think that's something that people need to be aware of, is that a lot of our politicians today will give you what's at the end of the race, but they'll never tell you how to get there, or what we have to do to get there. Now, I've always, as I've mentioned in this podcast and the one before that I personally believe that education is a tool to be used to progress this country at its finest. I believe that education, when used correctly and efficiently, can then provide a way of production that this country has yet to see in a very long time. But I also believe that, again, these things come at a price, and education is not free. Now, do I think that tuitions have a reasonable reason to increase their pricing by a copious amount in the last 25 to 30 years? No, I do not believe that it should be at all possible, even though it is entirely a reality today. I don't believe that tuition should have gone up the way it has gone up within the last 20 to 30 years. Absolutely not. Do I believe that there is a solution to that? I do. I think that if we were able to divert funds from one program to another, I think that if we were able to focus on what comes next from education. What comes next from education? Well, the idea of a job. So if we're providing jobs with good trained, educated labor. Would it then be reasonable to say that a corporation would then pay its due for that educated, well-trained worker? It's a possibility, it's a thought. So I guess what I'm saying here is that for this week, is that every promise that you hear a politician make, and he tells you that at the end of the race we're going to have free education, but he doesn't tell you how we're going to get there. Think twice on that. I believe, and I'm going to try and make it my own personal goal, that for every promise the ABP makes, we're going to tell you how that race is going to get us there. We're going to tell you how we're going to get to the end of the race. We're not just going to tell you what is at the end, but we're going to tell you how we're going to get there. That's about it.
All right, thank you, John. John Reimer, you're up.
All right. One topic that I feel is very important to our struggle is simply in the fact that we are so very heavily outnumbered by those who overshadow us, who decry our name, just as Matthew had said. I feel that if we were to educate the masses as we are doing, pumping out information that cancels them out, then I feel that we can approve the true fascist identity. And the fascist identity is something, in my eyes, that is something perfect. Compared to the liberal, the communist, or any other sort, the fascist individual is a very special individual. And very rarely is that individual seen among the masses. An individual who not only cares for the best of himself, but for the best of his community, family, and nation. And when we see movements like Unite the Right, it makes me detest the right-wing factors that go into politics at times. But then I realize that it won't matter, because eventually we're going to get the leg up on them. We're going to see them get stabbed in the back this time, not us. And if you open your history book, you'll see plainly and clearly the Italians were stabbed in the back by the Germans. And so never again can we trust the brown shirt individual, the National Socialist fascist. On top of that, I feel that the American black shirts should also take a feverish stand on anything that is neo-Confederate, neo-separatist. It is this design that we must, by all costs, preserve the Union and the idea of the Union. For America is simply that, a greater union beyond ourselves, the great community, the great nation. So,
made a good point about not allying with the brown shirts. That was led to the death of Mussolini. That's not a mistake we're going to repeat. Last but not least, Jesse, the man behind the scenes, what is your closing statement?
Okay, I'm gonna. I want to say. I want to take this time to tell all of our membership, especially our newer membership, to get out there and read, continue your education about our policies, everything. There's a lot of great member-written articles, and there's also a lot of great podcasts that we have. Go on AmericanBlackshirts.com and skim through and do all the articles. Take a night, especially if you're younger, one day on the weekend, you're bored, sit there and go on a binge reading of all of our member-written articles. I'd like to have a member-written article read because it's completely our ideas. We have a lot of historical articles as well, which is they're very educational. And I think this is very important. We all need to be completely unified on our stance, because our stance is the correct stance. There are people out there trying to tear apart our country, as we were talking about earlier, National Socialists, neo-Confederates and such. They literally want to tear apart our country along racial lines, which would pretty much make the United States not even a country. It would be several countries that are completely racist and pretty much destroy all society, which is ugly. Same thing with another thing I want to touch up on. I heard you guys talking about identity politics. Identity politics, both sides do it. The Republicans and the Democrats, both left and right, they all do that. They don't take the blame, and they don't really tell us the issues on our country. As for the Republicans, they blame it on illegal immigrants coming into this country, which it's not the individual immigrants' fault. The fault is capitalism and democracy. They want these guys to come in for cheap foreign labor, just so they could make a pretty penny at the expense of the American people, which the American people, has nothing to do with race. It's each and every single citizen of this country. And we need to be totally united. The current system is just tearing this country apart and dividing us. And we need to change this. This is our major goal. Our great goal to attain is have everyone believe that they're American and look at it as that. Everyone needs to work with their community, help make their community a better place. Another thing I want to touch up on is we need to start creating more meetups. This goes for everybody from directors to regular members, new members. If you're a new member, you first join, contact a regional director and ask them who lives close to me. I want to make this happen, and hang out with them. Once somebody is close to you, talk to them and just continue talking to them and go meet with them every once in a while. Best would be once a month, once every 2 months. That would be great. And then you guys could build a friendship together, a kinship, and start taking political action, which we need to do. This is going to be vital for us to start up chapters and stuff. Once you have 2 members, and you start taking some action, you're going to get another member with you. We're literally growing by over 100 members each year. And we've been around for a while, we've been around for years, so you could imagine how fast we're growing and how big we are. It's just, we're spread throughout the country. We're not a regional party. We're spread throughout the country. We need to start organizing this, and there's a couple states that are taking a great direction. And I just want to give a shout out to the Midwest. I know Arizona is going to start doing very well from now on. And I want to congratulate you guys and say we're doing very good. And let's keep this up. Continue your education. Read. Listen to our podcast. You'll learn a lot. And let's get this going. Let's get the show on the road and show the rest of the country that they're voting for the same thing. It's just going to be a vicious cycle of left and right. It's never going anywhere. It's just going to get worse and worse and worse. And that's about it, guys.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Drummond. And I just want to reinforce what he's talking about. On our site, we have works from fascist authors. We have works from our own members. We have over 200 articles. Please read as much as possible. Educate yourself. That's the way we're going to overcome. That's how we're going to be victorious, because that education, that knowledge translates into political action. It's the foundation from which we work upon. So I want to reinforce this to all members, everybody who supports this party, everybody who's listening to this. AmericanBlackshirts.com. Educate yourself. For the Fascist Roundtable, I am Joshua Neuer. It's been a pleasure being with you this evening. We will talk to you again real soon. Thank you very much.